Hello everyone, No Numberman here, and today we're going to get started making a Minecraft mod. A very basic Minecraft mod, but a Minecraft mod nonetheless. So we have already made a little setup tutorial thing. So we are set up, as you can see, so that's awesome. So right now we can get started just making a block. And just making a normal, boring block is normal and boring. So we're not just going to make any block. We're going to make a block that has like an infinite water source inside of it. So you can right click it with a bucket. And we can just grab some water buckets out of it. Sounds pretty cool, pretty simple. So let's just get started, right? And of course I should mention that yes, this is in Minecraft 1.18, but this will probably still work in later versions as well. Right, so the first thing that we are going to want to do is create a new block class. So let's go over here, create a new and then a class. We will call this the water source block. I think that makes sense, right? Water source block. Finish that thing up. Here we are. So now what we can do is we can just create, or we can extend the block class from Minecraft. So we can go ahead and import this. Eclipse. Thank you very much. Just a net.minecraft.block, that will do. And then of course we will have to add the constructor, which it will do automatically. Now we can take in the settings in our own constructor, or we can just say, well, whatever. We can create some of these block settings ourselves. So settings dot off, and then we can select a material. There are some basic Minecraft materials right in here. You can make your own material, but that is not what we're going to do today. So let's just see a water type block. What kind of sounds and stuff will it make? That is what the material defines. If you break the block, what kind of sounds does it make? If you walk over it, what kind of sounds does it make? I think I want to go with some sort of stony type. Because I think what I want to do is I want to make it like a stony type block with like a little bit of water in it. So let's select stone. Material.stone. There we go. And then of course we can also select some other properties in here as well. We can just aggregate a bunch of these dots with then a property. So we can choose here. We can choose resistance. And resistance, let me plug that in there. And resistance simply defines how resistant the block is to explosions, like from TNT or from a creeper. So from stone, just stone blocks have a resistance of 6. And our block should maybe be a little bit more resistant than that because there's water in it as well. So maybe we can make it like 12. And it is a float. Next up, we can also do the hardness, and that is that defines how long it takes to break the block. So let's see here. So for stone again, it is 1.5. I think we want it to be a little bit slower than that. Let's make it 2.0. That will do for now. This is basically enough to just define your very basic new block. Not your building block, just a nice texture with some basic properties, right? How long it takes to break, how much explosion resistance it has. Now, what we can do is we can also define what will happen if we right click the block. Now we can do that by overriding the onUse method. So, what do we need to decide? We don't really care about where we hit the block. We don't really care about what the position exactly is, or who the player is, or anything like that. The only thing we want to know is what is inside of the hand that is being clicked. So, it needs to be a bucket, an empty bucket, right? That makes sense. So the first thing that we are going to want to check is if we are on a server world. And don't confuse this with being on an actual Minecraft server. This very much just means, are we on the virtual server side of the game? So any game, client or server, has a server side and a client side. And what that means is the client side just basically does anything visual, right? It renders the stuff, it takes the input from your keyboard and from your mouse, and it sends it to the server does some stuff, sends it back. We want this to happen on the server side. Almost everything logic related should happen on the server side. And this is very much logic related. So Let us make sure that our world is on the server side, and we can check that by doing world.isClient. And of course, we don't want this to be true, so let's just invert that. There we go. So everything in here only happens on the server side. Very important. Then what we need to check if hand dot. Aha, so I misinterpreted what hand actually means. Hand only means, it's only an enum. It only means either the main hand or the offhand. We don't really care if the bucket is in the main hand or the offhand. We really don't. If there's a bucket and we right click it, that should do the trick. So now we can try to get the item stack from the main hand first. Let's see what the player has in his main hand. What you can do is you can do player and then stack, and then here it should say get main hand stack, this one. And now we should check if this of course is a bucket or no. So we can do get item and then check if it double equals items.bucket. If it is true, then we can do some logic. Otherwise, we can check if he has a bucket in his offhand. So we can do player get offhand stack dot get item double equals items dot bucket. So we take priority for the main hand, of course. Then if the main hand is a bucket, then we have to check what the stack size is. If the player only has one bucket in his main hand, then we need to remove that bucket and just add the water bucket in its place. We can just replace it. Very simple. If he has like 2 buckets or more in his inventory, then we need to remove 1 bucket still, but then we can't quite replace the bucket in his inventory with a water bucket, because there still is an empty bucket in there. So instead, we're going to just have to add the water bucket to the player's inventory in like a normal way. So if the inventory is full, then he'll spit it on the ground, you know, just like in little Minecraft with like filling up water buckets from a normal infinite water source. Let's check that here. If player.get main hand stack .get count, if that double equals 1, then we can replace it. So we can say player.set stack in hand. Then the hand, of course, will be hand.main hand. And the new stack will be a new item stack, which will have a size of 1. Let's see what the constructor is. It has a item and an integer, right? So I need the items bucket and 1 of those. And there we go. This should work. And then we're kind of done. But if there are more buckets in the inventory, then of course we can't quite do this. So instead, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get the stack in the player's hand. And then we can decrement the amount that we have. So decrements the count of items in this stack. So decrement by just 1. Suppose we can do this either way, but it's easier to just replace if at all possible. And after this, we're going to have to do player.give item stack. Give it to the player. And that will of course also be 1 water bucket. I do realize that I said bucket here. Well, it has to be a water bucket. Of course, water buckets. Same thing over here. We're just going to give the item stack. This thing does return a boolean. Now, I'm not entirely sure if we need to manually drop the item on the ground if it doesn't fit in the inventory, or if this does it automatically. But we will be able to find out by just testing in a little bit, which we will do, and then we can debug this code. That is how, unfortunately, it goes sometimes. And of course, if this happens in the offhand, we should do the exact same thing. So maybe we should kind of refactor this, because now I just have to copy and paste it there. So maybe what I should do is we should actually use the built-in hand function, and we should just say, well, if, oh, there we go, player.get stack in hand, and then of course we just use the hand that we are given, and then we get the item. Look at that, that makes way more sense. And then in here we can just set stack in hand at the hand that we were given. Oh, and this is main hand stack. That should of course be the get stack in hand everywhere. Yes, there we are. This will just work. So if this was true, if we have found the bucket, then of course our action was a success. So what we can do is we can do return action result dot success. There we go. And we can also read here that success means indicates an action is performed and the actor's hand should swing to indicate the performance. That is exactly what we want. So perfect. But of course, if this doesn't happen, either we don't have a bucket in our hand or we are not in the client world, then we could return action.fail. However, then we don't swing with our hand. And the thing is, in normal Minecraft blocks, like just a cobblestone block, if you right click it, you do actually swing your hand, even though nothing happens. So I do think we should actually return the action result success, no matter what happens. There we go. I think that makes sense. All right, and with that, I think the code here should kind of work. Now, the only thing we still need to do to test it out is to actually load it into the game. And that is relatively simple. So let's go back to the no number mod. Then what we can do here is we can load the block. We can just do that up here. We can just say, well, public, well, it could even be private. But let's keep it public, static, then we can access it, which is nice. Public static final, and then we can call it block. And this will be the water source block. And this will equal new water source block. And remember, we remove the constructor, or we remove the parameter in the constructor because we're just doing everything inside of the class itself, which is nice here. I do believe, actually, of course, we need to import block. I do believe actually in Java, this should all be capitalized. Like public static final fields should be capitalized. So water source block. And I do think that is the proper formatting, though I'm not entirely sure, but that's what they do here with logger. So do try to think about formatting, of course. Then on initialize, what we can do is we can get registry, just tree.register. Here we can register something, which will of course be a registry.block type. Block, that one. We need to add a new identifier. These ones need to be unique. So every block needs to have a unique identifier. Every item needs to have a unique identifier. I do believe that the identifier of a block can be the same as an identifier of an item, but different items or different blocks should have different identifiers. So the first part here is the mod ID, and the mod ID that I chose was no number mod, and M. Then of course the actual name that we are going to use is the water source block, and this time it should be all lowercase. Water source block. There we go. And then of course lastly the block is the water source block. There we are. An identifier, we need to import that, of course, like everything else, and there we go. Now we have the block inside of the game, but we don't actually have the item of the block inside of the game. Something that we do actually kind of want, right? So let's get the item into the game as well, so that we can have it in our inventory and we can actually place it. So now we need to register an item. We can give this the same name, so we will. And then we should have a new block item here in the end, being new block item, and we should register that. Of course, we need to import this like everything else, not net.minecraft.block item. This needs to be the block item of the water source block. Let's just indent this a little bit. There we go, that's gonna become a very long line. And this needs a new item settings, which for us is going to be a fabric item settings. There we are, and not group. This will be the creative tab group. Item group. And what creative tab do we want here? Food, maybe something like redstone. Might be redstone related. Not entirely sure. Might also be brewing related. Let's keep it redstone-ish. There we go. And of course import the fabric item settings. And let's see, yeah, this works. This should do it for us. So let's save. And let's run the code. Okay, and here we are. So let's go to the redstone tab. Now we should have, there we go, a unknown texture. Can place it down, awesome. Then let's take a random item and then let's take a water bucket and let's take an empty bucket. Right click with a random item, not do anything, great. The water bucket, not do anything, great. With a bucket, fills it up with water. Absolutely perfect. Now, of course, let's say we have a stack of buckets. There we are. So it decreases the stack and it adds a new item to our inventory. Now, let's say though, because this was one thing that I was somewhat concerned about. Let's say our inventory is completely full. There we go. What happens if I right click here? Ah, nothing. So it decreases our stack, but we don't actually get the bucket and it isn't spilled into the ground. Oh no, that is an issue. Okay, well, let's go ahead and fix that, shall we? How to fix a bug 101. So, what happens is if we have more than one item here, if we have more than one item in our stack, then things go wrong. Right? Because we can't replace the item that we already have, so we need a new spot in our inventory. So all I do is we give the item stack, but it returns a boolean. So I'm guessing if this returns true, it succeeded. If it returns false, it probably didn't succeed. So we might need to throw it on the ground. So let us try exactly that. So if this was false, then we'll do player and then drop item. Right? So let's try this one then. So we have, of course, still the same item stack. And then we have to drop it randomly. We'll just say true. Let's give it some random offset. And then the last one was a retain ownership. We'll set that one to true as well. I'm not sure if that is exactly how vanilla does it, but we will try it anyway. Okay, so I gave myself some new buckets. Let's try it. Oh, now I don't see anything. If I do this in creative mode, oh, then I also don't get anything. Okay, so I suppose that is not completely weird. But in creative mode, we also don't get a decreasing bucket. So that is another bug that we might need to fix. So game mode survival. Ah, now we don't drop anything. Oh, no, well, that drops very weird. Look at that random drop. It just drops there. If we F5, you can really see it. See that? Okay, so the randomness is not quite what we want. I don't think this is what we had envisioned. So let's try this again. Let's get rid of the randomness. Let's say, well, let's put that to false. And let's try this function again. This is the drop item, not drop item stack. So maybe this just works differently. Okay, let's see here. Aha! And that is exactly what we wanted to see. Right, so now we just spit it out in front of us. Perfect. If we are in game mode, creative, if we do the same thing, then nothing happens, but the stack does get decreased. So that is still something that we have to check. Aha, so in creative mode, if you don't have a bucket in your inventory, bucket of water, and you right click, the stack doesn't decrease, and you get a water bucket. But otherwise, nothing happens. So in creative, if you don't have a water bucket in your inventory, you will just get one for free. But if you already do have one, you get nothing. You just remove water. That's probably just to make it easy to remove water, let's be honest. So let's mimic that sort of behavior. So let's check here if the player is in creative mode. Is creative. I do believe that is what we want. Otherwise, we will do the code that we already had here. Then if we were in creative mode and there is no water bucket in our inventory, so player.has item. So I think I figured out how to do this. So we can get the inventory of the player, get the main inventory of the player, You can stream that inventory and then we can see if any match this thing. So stack, of course, if any, have stack dot item get item. All right, double equals items dot water bucket. So if this is true for any item in the inventory, in the main inventory of the player, then we will give the player a new water bucket. Or if this is not true, right? We invert this. Okay, great. Let's see if this works. And here we are. So let's right click. And we get the water bucket. Perfect. And then we don't get a water bucket anymore. So it works, boys. It works. Now if we put a water bucket in the offhand though, yeah, now we do get it because I'm only checking the main hand or the main inventory and not the offhand or armor inventories. So maybe, wait, I'm actually not sure if that is how it works in vanilla Minecraft. Let's actually check that out. So if I have this, oh, that's true. Let's place some water here. Aha. So vanilla Minecraft does check the offhand. So let's do that as well. Right, there's no option to stream everything. So we can just say if it is not in the main inventory and it is not in the offhand. So now you can say not player dot offhand, get offhand stack dot get item double equals items to water buckets. Yes, and let's invert the whole expression. There we go. So if the water bucket is not inside of the main inventory and if it is not inside of the offhand, then we give the player a new water bucket. And of course, we just check if we can fit it in the inventory. Otherwise, we'll just spit it out. Actually, I'm not entirely sure if that is how Minecraft does it. I actually don't think so. I think if the inventory is full, we'll just not do anything. So let's just give the item stack. And if it doesn't fit in the inventory, well, too bad. You're not getting it. There you go. All right, so we have one water bucket in our offhand right now. So let's right click, and it doesn't add anything. Of course, if it's not in our offhand, then it does add it to our inventory. Perfect. And now if everything is filled, see here, then I shouldn't do anything either. No. Same thing here with the vanilla Minecraft water. Same thing with the vanilla Minecraft water. Okay, that is perfect. Then our infinite water source works approximately the same as a vanilla Minecraft infinite water source, which is what we wanted. So I'm pretty happy with this. And that means that this video is coming to an end. Unfortunately, we do not have time to also go over and do the texture. Yes, we are going to have to do the texture. We will do that in the very next episode, of course. And just like this one, we won't just make a very regular, old, boring tutorial video. Okay, this is how you make a texture, guys. Now, we will make a proper model. And then we, of course, will make a proper, nice looking texture. One that perhaps has a little animation on it, something like that. You know, so be sure to subscribe to not miss that when we continue on this mod. Also, I really do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, then make sure that you head over to my Twitch channel. Link is in the description, of course. And on there, every Friday on 8 PM, we always make Minecraft mods. Not just any Minecraft mods. You can decide which Minecraft mod we make. Yes, we take all sorts of viewer suggestions, and then we put it all in a big wheel, and then we spin the wheel, and we see what we're going to make that day. It's pretty cool. Be sure to be there. It's awesome. All right. And if you have any other questions, link to the Discord also in the description. The Discord is awesome, guys. It's really true. Everyone there is super friendly. Would love to help you out if you have any questions. And me too, of course. I'll also be there. All right. Until the next video, and bye-bye.